Hi everyone, we are back with another video. You can see we're outside today and it's beautiful, so we thought we'd shoot outside. This video is going to be more informational and educational rather than funny or showing you what a day in our life is like. So what we've discovered is that there are some essential things that you need for living off-grid and some essential items that are necessary, not necessarily for survival, but to make your life off the grid a little bit easier. So we've got about 12, I think it's 12 things that we have that we're going to talk about that we found over the past few months of living off-grid that we've needed. The first one is this little handy tool here. This is a fire starter. Works like so. You scrape it and it starts a fire for you. Why this is useful is because it's not something that's matches, so you don't have to worry about running out of matches. It's not a lighter that runs on propane fuel or butane or anything like that, or on some inner mechanism. It's just straight friction. So this is really useful, and we'll leave the link in the description down below.
Alright, my number one essential item on this homestead right now is hands down a headlamp. I realized the very first week we got here that the days are really short, being that we're in the northern climates, and a headlamp is very essential because you're always running outside to do something, or you are outside just doing something, and it's dark from 8 o'clock in the morning and it gets dark at 6 o'clock at night. I would recommend getting one of these. It's charged via USB. So you just twist this off, which is pretty cool, and you just plug in the USB here, and it's got 3 different settings, I believe, on this one. Yeah. So we'll leave a link in the description for this one as well.
Your next item is a stove fan. This is something that you can get. We'll leave the description in the link below. But you have one kind, and we have 2 kinds. So we have 3 stove fans actually, but these are 2 of the kinds, 2 of the most common kinds that I've seen you can get. And why those are important is because when you live off grid, you are run by wood heat. Most people are run by wood heat. Some people run heat lamps and whatnot, but most people, when they're off grid, they're run by wood heat. So in order to spread that heat around as much as possible, you want something, a tool that you can use to be able to put the heat around the place and spread the air faster through your home, which most off-grid homes are going to be log houses. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we found. Now obviously it's really nice and we don't have our stoves going, so that's a plus. We don't need the stove fans anymore. But during the winter, stove fans are an absolute necessity.
One thing I'd like to touch on these stove fans is they don't use any power at all. So when you set it on this, the heat will work its way through the unit itself and then generate heat or generate electricity to propel the fan just based on heat. I think it's like 200 or 300 degrees that it starts spinning, and then the hotter it is, the faster this spins. So yeah, like Kimberly said, these are very useful.
Especially in the winter.
Yes. Now, my next item on this ticket here is a UTV or an ATV, and I would go as far as also like a snowmobile also. Just seeing the locals around here, they use them quite often in the winter. But one of the 2 there, a UTV or an ATV, I find is incredibly helpful depending on how big your homestead is. Now, if you have 1 acre, I don't think you're really going to need one. But if you have 5 or more, I would say it's almost essential just to haul wood around. Today I was moving around some sawdust bales, propane tanks. I was driving down the driveway filling in some potholes that the river has made. So it really makes your life easier on the homestead. And now also coming up in the spring, we're going to need to load up the UTV with all the plants that we're putting down in the garden down at the bottom, all the shovels, all the tools that you need, music of course, got to make sure you get that. But
and for wood hauling.
Oh yeah, and for wood hauling as well. And that's what a lot of the locals use a snowmobile for here is in the winter, because some prefer to cut in the winter. And they just have a little sleigh that they attach onto the snowmobile, and then they just go pack wood down in the winter.
Your next item, or our next item on our list, is a knife. Now this is a little short utility knife. Something that I'm going to stress here is that you want a knife that is something that can is a utility knife, and it's not something that's a fancy knife that's only used for cutting one or two things. This is a knife. It doesn't have a serrated blade, so it is not as sharp as some of the ones that have serrated blades. It's a smooth one rather, but it's very, very sharp still, and it can be used for a variety of things. If you have to use it for hunting, if you have to use it, I could use this. I could take this into the kitchen and use it for cutting vegetables, or for cutting fruits or anything. So that's what I mean by utility knife. You want a knife that serves a dual purpose, or perhaps a triple purpose or a quadruple purpose, because you don't want something that is only meant for one purpose and one purpose only when you live off grid and you're limited as to what you can get for your supplies. So I'd say that this would be something that would be really important to have, and a good quality of knife as well, because you don't want your knife breaking when you are on a remote property or when you're in a remote area, and you don't have something that is replaceable quite as easily. You want to make sure you have something that's good quality. So that would be the next essential for off-grid.
Speaking of breaking, pass me that knife. If it ever does break, this brings me to my next point on the list, is you're going to need a backup. So the way I worded this on our list, yes, we are professional today and we have paperwork. Yeah, I figured out real quick out here that you need doubles of everything. So the one day our water heater, one of the joints came apart and started leaking, and I didn't have a soldering.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. And I didn't have a soldering iron on me, and it was, I think, late at night or something.
It was late at night.
So we didn't want to bother any of the
7 p.m.
locals looking for a soldering iron, and we had no hot water there for, I don't know, 12 hours, 18 hours, I can't remember what it was. And the previous owner, they did leave other hot water heaters on the property. However, they seemed to just be parts and none of them were functional. So we ended up buying our own, or a brand new one, so that in the event that this one ever does go kaput and we can't use it at all, it's just basically a swap the one out with the other one and you're good to go. And that goes with many other things that you need here, such as a chainsaw. You almost need two. The other day I had my oiler go on the chainsaw, and luckily one of the neighbors had two with blown out motors, and I was able to swap parts out of the other one and get it up and running without having to head to town just to get a $7 piece, and it would have cost me probably $100 in gas just to get there. So on that topic of the chainsaw, before I pass it back to Kimberly here, if you want to see a video on the oiler, I'll leave a link up here so you can click on that and check out how we swap how I swap out a 460 oiler for in a 450 Husqvarna. So now it's your turn.
Perfect. Okay. The other thing that we found really useful here on our off-grid property, we do have a lot of land. It's not that we are necessarily that far apart all the time, but we do have a lot of land that we have to cover. And I'm usually inside doing something or other, whether it's working, teaching, cooking, cleaning, doing whatever. And Andre's usually outside. He'll usually be outside doing chores or working the land or chopping wood or whatever he does out here that's useful, that keeps this place running, for which I'm very grateful. But one thing that we found is that I can't just text him because we don't have cell phone service.
Or scream outside because sometimes I'm way too far.
Yeah, or I can't scream outside. So what we have here is two-way radios. I have one here with me, simply because I had it. He actually has the other one on him. So we'll keep these with us at all times when we're separated, so that if I'm in the house and he needs help with something, or if he's outside and he needs my help with something, or if there's something that needs to be said between the two of us, in case of an emergency, that's also useful as well. If I look out the window and I see a bear coming up the hill and I know Andre's in the shop and he's tinkering with whatever, then I'm not just going to stay quiet. I'm also not going to scream out the door. that there's a bear. So these are really useful in a lot of ways. I find that it's been really useful since we've been here. It just, again, not something that you have to have, but we view it as an essential because it makes our life a lot easier, and I don't have to run outside, and Andre doesn't have to run inside all the time.
And Kimberly's not screaming at me when I come inside with dirty boots and I don't take them off. So it's easy to radio Kimberly and be like, hey, is this inside the house? If so, bring it outside.
I don't yell at you about dirty boots. What are you talking about?
That's why the Roomba's always running.
Yeah, that's not an off-grid essential.
Now the next thing I'd like to touch on is an actual chainsaw or an axe. That's pretty straightforward, kind of a no-brainer. And you don't want to get a cheap one. You want to get something that's decent and that'll last you a long time. Also, you'd like to get multiple chains possibly and have them sharpened all the time, so that way if you're going to have like a week that you're going to be just hacking up wood, you don't want to sit there and waste half hour or whatever it is sharpening your chains. You can just swap one out, or say you're out somewhere chopping wood and your chain just goes dull and you don't want to come back because you only have half a load. It's easy just to swap out your chain out there. And an axe also, I would recommend not just a little hatchet, and you don't want something too big. So something like a little trail axe would be perfect, just so that when you're out and about, you can just pluck off branches, just to make your life easier when you're bringing it back onto the property to stack it. So yeah.
The next thing that I would like to talk about that we've discovered since the snow has melted, for the most part, we do still have some snow, but since the snow has melted, and even when the snow's here actually, something that's really, really useful is rubber boots. I highly, highly suggest, I am wearing them as well, but something I highly suggest would be rubber boots, just because it's not practical for you to get fancy winter boots. Something like Uggs will not survive out here. It's just not going to happen. So invest in a really good pair of quality rubber boots. Andre has really good ones. I have really good ones as well. That was something that we definitely spent more money on than maybe most people wouldn't, because most people would be like, oh, they're just rubber boots, whatever. But I do think that it's important to have a high quality rubber, and I think yours are actually steel-toed, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a composite, yes, and they're good for minus 40 degrees, and yeah, they got the green sticker and all that fancy standards.
Yes, mine are not quite that fancy, but they are very high quality rubber boots. They're super comfortable, but I cannot stress the importance enough of rubber boots on an off-grid property when you have snow drifts that are, you know, potentially a foot to a foot and a half deep. We get about 2 to 2.5 up here, in the deeper spots, or when it's muddy, as it is now, as everything is drying out, all the snow's melting and there's so much water everywhere, and there's mud everywhere. So rubber boots are super useful. Definitely something that we'd recommend as an absolute essential for an off-grid property.
My next thing on the list would be either knowledge, to be living somewhere where you have to be self-reliant, or books. Excuse me. I would not recommend internet, because internet can always go down. So if you don't have the knowledge on a certain topic, then you're best to buy some books. And I'll go through a couple right now that I have. And the first one I have right now is BUSHCRAFT, which is a book that teaches you how to build different tools. Also teaches you how to use rope different ways, different knots. What else would be different ways to build a fire? Say you're lost somewhere and you need to build one with just by rubbing wood. It gives you the know-how on there as well, and the different types of wood, which is perfect. The next one I'd like to like really hit on this one that people don't think of too much is first aid. And this one here tells you, say you're on a hike and someone sprains an ankle, how you can make, say, crutches, or they break a bone, how you can make a splint. Say they get an allergic reaction to a certain type of plant that they rubbed up on when they were out here. I'll tell you what to do, if it's poisonous, if it's not poisonous. So this one is very important. The next one that I'd like to I got personally for me, because now we got a different truck, and diesel engines are a lot different than gas engines. And yeah, there's mechanics up here, but I'm one of those stubborn ones that like to figure things out on my own. So I got a diesel engines troubleshooting and repairing book, so that if I'm ever in a pickle, that I can kind of skim through this and figure it out. And another one is, because you do have, like, this would even be good for people in the city just living day to day. Instead of taking your tools somewhere to get fixed, you can just kind of skim through this book. And now this one is small engines, outdoor power equipment book. So you got your whippersnippers, your lawnmowers, your chainsaws, how different engines function, 2-stroke, 4-stroke, compressors, pressure washers. So it's always good to have something like this, because what was it that was not working right? Oh, the snowblower wasn't working.
Yes.
We brought the snowblower up here from picking it up from the dealer, and it wouldn't fire up brand new right out of the box. And so we brought, I thought it was a spark plug just the way it was backfiring, but I didn't know exactly. So I brought over one of the mechanics, and sure enough, he pulled out the spark plug, looked at it, it was caked black. We put a new spark plug in, and it fired back up. So if I had this right off the bat, which I just got probably last week or the week before, I wouldn't have probably had to call them. So small engine repair is a great essential book, in my opinion, out here.
Well, it's essential for you to have knowledge and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to be able to know what you're doing, and not have to rely on someone who is perhaps 6 hours away.
Yeah, like, so if you haven't done gardening, so I would recommend getting one on gardening, how to germinate seeds. Being that I've done that in the past, I kind of have it stored back in the filing cabinet somewhere.
In the filing cabinet, yeah. So the last thing for me that I wanted to talk about was going to be this right here. This is a cast iron pot, a cast iron pan. You can get these anywhere. They're not super hard to find. They are rather expensive if you're getting good quality ones, and the reason for that is because they last so long. They're much higher quality than your regular pots and pans. People could say, oh, well, you could just get regular pots and pans if you're living off-grid. Of course you can, but this is a better alternative, simply because it's healthier for you. It's not releasing all of the same BPAs and toxins and stuff that are in aluminum and other pots and pans you might be cooking with that are not as high of a material. One thing with cast iron is you actually don't have to wash it as much. There are certain ways of taking care of it, and of course we want to make sure that we're making our things last as long as possible. But when you have one cast iron pan or one cast iron pot, you really only need one, because they do such a great job. And I would rather have one pan that's super reliable that I can count on when I'm in the kitchen cooking, rather than an aluminum pan or perhaps a steel pan that's getting burnt or something like that. So this is definitely a must, cast iron cookware if you're living off-grid. I as someone who has experienced that in the kitchen, I would say that this is a must for people who are living off-grid.
Glad you're happy with your frying pan.
I am. I watch out.
Speaking of that, now that she's threatening me, my final thing on the list is protection. So protection comes in many forms, protection and security, I would say. So I'm not going to give you a show and tell on that. However, I would say the top thing you would probably need is some sort of protection for the land. So be it dogs, we have 2 of them, and something that you can defend the property with. So it could be either a pistol, a shotgun, compound bow, crossbow. Any of those items I would think would suffice. Many people up here have 1, if not 5 or 10
6.
of them. Yeah, exactly.
Or 7 different forms.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always different forms. Another thing I really found that was useful out here, especially when, say, the dogs are somewhere else on the property at night and not in a certain location that they need to, like, say, at the chicken coop, and they're sniffing around at the bottom of the driveway. Motion sensor lights. That way, when you're sitting in the house and you see these lights go off, you know something's out there. That way the dogs don't have to alert you. Say that they're sleeping in the middle of the night and this thing's on the other property, just like the grizzly bear that was here with the previous owner.
Yeah.
He didn't have any lights or anything, but I'm sure if he had a motion sensor light and listened to his dogs, his 5
fine.
or 6 chickens would be fine.
Yeah, that is something that's really important for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the end of our list, I think, that we are going through.
Yeah, that's everything that we would say. If you guys have any comments or you have any suggestions, you have any ideas that you think would also be helpful off-grid, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. We'd love to hear. If you think that maybe we've missed something, or maybe that you have some ideas about what you think is essential for off-grid. So looking forward to hearing from you. Chat later.